Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing at a time that is not exactly recent. Let's just be honest. It's July. It's August. We're just putting some stuff in. Some people are going on vacation. Joining me from Los Angeles, California, where he's still working, is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
Joining us from the Pacific Northwest at a beautiful cabin in the woods, is MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Did some bioluminescent kayaking the night before we recorded this, so not a whole lot.
That sounds like it could have been hallucinogenic aided.
No, it could have been. It was not. I did learn that there are some mushrooms that have bioluminescence in them, actually, and one of which is even edible and not of the hallucinogenic kind. Also learned that the back seat of the kayak, the little tandem kayaks where you control the rudders, 6'4" doesn't fit in that real well. So we had to have a mid-ride shift.
I see. Were there any bodies lost over the edge on the mid-ride shift? That's the key.
Nobody's lost, but one of my 12-year-olds learned several new words. Actually, he knows them all. He just heard.
I bet he didn't learn them. All right. So today we are going to take a look at the ESPN. Look, now that the 90-something% of the offseason has been completed, the over/under win totals are updated by ESPN Bet, and we're going to take a look at the Eastern Conference and see how we think it's going to shape up based on the way ESPN Bet sees it. It's always a fun thing we do every year. So we'll start today with the Eastern Conference. And we're just going to go straight down alphabetical order. I think that's the best way to go. So we'll start with the Boston Celtics. Bontemps, the Boston Celtics over/under for this upcoming season. The expectation is that Jason Tatum will be out for the entire year. They traded away some key players, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Jaylen Brown has the offseason knee surgery. Is 43.5. I know Brad Stevens, their team president, said, recently when they gave an offseason update on their team, he said we're still a playoff team. And I think that's true because the Eastern Conference is not super deep. And this over/under implies that the ESPN Bet believes that they're still a playoff team without Jason Tatum.
Not to poke at you a bit, but if we're going in alphabetical order, I think we skipped a team in Atlanta.
Oh, the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, why?
You can do Boston first. I mean,
you are correct. That is
okay.
I am correct. A comes before B. I am aware.
Well, also, no, I see what he did. Jackson, what did you do?
No, Jackson gave us Atlanta by division. It was my fault.
Jackson has a team in alphabetical order by division in the.
I accept full responsibility, and because of that, I want to be held accountable. And Jackson, I would request that you do not edit that out.
Well, also to make it easier, let's go alphabetic by division because there's no way we can put these in alphabetical order on the fly.
Jackson, just with some technological wizardry, immediately fixed it. So now it's flipped.
All right, we're going to start with the Celtics, and then we're going to do the Hawks. Go.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm doing some quick math here. So Boston's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so they're tied. They're tied for 6th with another team we'll get to later. So
God, we're figuring out alphabetical order and counting on the fly. This is getting off to a roaring start.
Wanted to take a quick look at where they sit.
It's early on the West Coast.
Look, the Celtics are in a weird spot, obviously, because they still do have a couple of really good players, and then they also have some fairly giant holes on their roster. I mean, right now, their center rotation is Xavier Tillman, Luke Garza, and Neemias Queta, which is a bit of a drop-off from Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford and Luke Kornet, all of whom are going to be playing elsewhere next season.
We think for Horford.
Celtics have said Horford's not going to be in Boston, so it's a matter of.
Well, we think he's playing, although by this time things might be wrapped up. But anyways, go on.
But yeah, I mean, if I had to make a bet on the Celtics one way or the other, I would probably bet the under because they're one Jaylen Brown and or Jaylen Brown or Derek White injury away from just not having very much firepower on the court at all. And they have a lot of young players who I think they're going to be playing a lot of minutes. And we're not going to see Jason Tatum this year. I could certainly see this being some version of a a pause for the franchise overall. I think they're probably going to try to save more money. Right now, they're currently just into the second apron.
So over or under?
Well, I said under.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think there's enough reasons to think that they're going to go the other way. They could, Jaylen Brown and Derek White could play 80 games and be awesome, and they could, maybe win 45, 46 games. But I think it's more likely that they have some injuries. They play a lot of these young guys a lot of minutes, and they're probably still in the play-in anyway, because I don't really know if it's possible to get into the bottom 5 of the East, given how bad some of these teams are going to be. But I think it's more likely they're under 500.
Yeah, I'll take the under, and I will take it in part because the Celtics have another very tough opponent that will be on their schedule every single night, and that's human nature. Like, these are guys who are obviously they're guys who have won a championship, guys who are accustomed to competing for a championship, and guys who are showing up to training camp fully aware that there is no way in hell they're going to have that opportunity this season. They'll completely understand that this is a gap year. And I just think that's going to be tough to get amped up and to maintain their focus for 82 games, knowing that this is a season that ultimately is going to lead to nowhere.
Yeah. So the thing about, and this is going to be repeating itself as we talk about this, Bontemps just mentioned it. There's some teams in the East that are just weak. And so you're going to get some wins, whether you are relative or not. I suspect that Jaylen Brown, assuming his knee is okay, is going to have a massive season. And I think he's going to just carry them to a bunch of wins. I think he's going to see as an opportunity this year to show everybody what he can do. And I agree that they're probably not going to have enough, but I think that he is going to be a difference maker in a lot of games. So I'm actually inclined to nose over because you're going to see Jaylen Brown. I expect a huge year from Jaylen Brown. I will advise my friends who ask me about fantasy stuff to prioritize getting Jaylen Brown this year. Again, assuming he looks okay in the preseason. I don't know if he's even going to 100% be able to start right there because, as you know, I believe there's no such thing as a minor knee injury. Okay, moving on. Let's go back to the Atlanta Hawks, who had a huge offseason. In terms of value out versus value in, they traded Terrence Mann, 1 net first-round pick, and I think 1 or 2 seconds. And they ended up bringing back Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, and that 2026 unprotected first that they got in that draft night deal where they moved back 10 spots in the draft.
Which might be the most valuable thing they added.
Right.
And they added 2 really solid starters.
Now, that's not fair because they to get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they also used an existing trade exception. So I'm not giving the whole landscape there, but from what they traded out to what they brought in, they've really significantly upgraded, and their win total reflects it. MacMahon, 46.5 is what ESPN bet says is the over-under for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, and I think Atlanta had one of the best off seasons, arguably the best off season in the Eastern Conference. I'm trying to think where the argument would be. I'm going to say they had the best off season in the Eastern Conference. Are they 7 wins better than last season? Look, obviously Porzingis' health is going to be a major factor here. But I do think that over the course of a couple of years, they've done a phenomenal job of putting a cast around Trae Young that, it's not just a supporting cast, but it's a cast that can protect him on the defensive end. And Trae Young, for his defensive flaws, is still one of the best offensive engines in the league. I would trend over on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. There are some questions here health-wise. Let's see where Trae Young's Achilles is at this year. The Achilles tendonitis he had a lot of last year, I think, is a cause for concern. They are going to be relying on some young players. We'll see how they develop. Zachary Richiche, will he take a step forward in his second year? Can Jalen Johnson stay healthy? He is a good player, but he has had some injury issues. Kristaps Porzingis obviously has had his fair share of injury issues. He's got a clean bill of health after the stuff he had in the spring, and by all accounts are going to play in Eurobasket, and the Hawks feel good about where he's at. So, so that's all there. I'm going to take the over because of what we talked about with Boston. There's a lot of wins to be had in the East. I think the Hawks are going to be a top 4 team in the East. I don't think the 4th team in the East is going to weigh 45 or 44 wins. So I will take the over there with the injury question still in mind.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. I was going to point out, in case you forgot about Jalen Johnson, he averaged 19, 10, and 5 last year on 50% shooting before he hurt his shoulder. He only played 36 games, and as you pointed out, he's had injuries. He's only averaged 46 games the last 2 years. But this is a major uprising player there. So you're almost bringing him back. He almost feels like a little bit of a new player as well, but obviously the health. Another thing to watch with them is whether or not they get Trae Young into an extension. They're not going to give him a max extension. So will he accept something less than that? We'll see. That'll be something that'll be a factor going into the season. But I'm also going to go over, Dyson Daniels, another guy that got to get signed, obviously had a breakout year last year. Okay, back to alphabetical order. The Brooklyn Nets. We'll start with you, Bontemps. The Nets over-under is 21.5. We don't know whether they're going to have Cam Thomas, though I feel like one way or another he's going to end up staying in a Nets uniform. He is obviously a key scorer for them. They've got a metric ton of rookies, 5 first-round picks. I am not going to get aggregated again over what people are saying about their first-round picks. I will just say that in Summer League, their most impressive young player in many cases was Drew Timme.
Shout out Pierce High.
Was not one of their first round picks, but 21.5 Bontemps.
Yeah, this one is tough because the Nets obviously are going to be bad. Just a question of how bad are they going to be. I will take the under simply for what you just said. They're going to be playing a ton of rookies, a ton of minutes. A lot of these rookies are interesting players, but they're a lot of ball handlers who are not good shooters. They're going to be playing a lot of young guards in general, which is
how you lose in the NBA. Young guards.
Oh yeah. Especially mediocre young guards.
Well, Igor Demin, the 8th overall pick. I'm sure he'll be starting at point guard. I'm sure he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. That is going to be good for his development, and it's going to be good for losing games and trying to get a top 5 pick, which they really need to do in this year's draft. Cam Thomas will be back. I'm almost certain it will be on the qualifying offer at some point.
If that is the case, if Cam Thomas comes back on the qualifying offer, I'm also going to suggest to my friends who play, especially I have some friends who have points only leagues.
I was going to say,
Mr.
as long
Thomas,
as field goal percentage isn't part of it.
Cam Thomas on the qualifier on a bad team, get that gentleman on your fantasy teams.
No, so that I will take the under. It would not shock me if they go over. Obviously, Jordi Fernandez did a tremendous job last year and showed he can really coach. But this team has to be in the top 5 next year. Yep. I suspect this year is going to go like Utah did last year, where they are going to do everything they can to make sure that they are, if not the worst record in the league, right there, instead of being somewhere in the middle of the lottery like they were this year.
Yeah, I'm going under because it better be. And the Utah comparison to me is exactly right. Right down to Jordi Fernandez has already proven that he can coach. As a matter of fact, he's proven that he can coach a little bit too well for where the Brooklyn Nets are in their rebuild. Just like Will Hardy did in Utah, you've got to make sure that he's not capable or not allowed in maybe some cases of putting lineups out there that can actually win games. It's just where they are. They don't have a player to build around. They've got to find that guy.
How dare you? Michael Porter Jr. has just arrived in town. He's very excited.
They've got to find that guy in the draft.
By the way, did you see that the Nets posted a video of Michael Porter coming to their practice facility for the first time, which is it's a great practice facility in Brooklyn. It's got a great view of the Manhattan skyline. And did you guys see this video?
No.
So Porter comes in, and it's a team propaganda video. They're like, he is properly like impressed with their practice facility, and he's like, "Wow, you guys got 2 courts." Which was more of a commentary on the Nuggets, who have sort of this antiquated facility that's like on the 4th floor of the Ball Arena. So.
Exactly. That's interesting.
So I don't think he was meaning to take a shot at the Nuggets.
He's never been. Yeah, listen.
I know he's never seen a practice facility with 2 courts. I'm just kidding. I'm sure he's seen it. I'm just saying that's what he wanted me to say. That's what he said.
Yeah. No, it's like the Rockets when they opened their last year. They went from having just this little 1 court in the arena to this palace of a practice facility. Yeah. So we don't need to discuss this just a whole lot, but they'll be bad. And again, the other thing I would say, it better be really bad now and or really lucky in the lottery, because that 27 draft, guess what? Oh, the Rockets still have swap rights.
Yeah, their plan when they made the trade last summer was to get control of their picks for 2 years. And as soon as they did that, it was pretty obvious they were going to intend to be bad for 2 years. And considering that they haven't even spent all their cap space as of the recording of this particular podcast, indicates that intends to be. So I think the under, and if they go over 21.5, we'll congratulate them, but it will be by accident. All right. The Charlotte Hornets, 24.5, MacMahon. They are thriving. My friends in Charlotte are looking, and I mean, seriously, this is not ironically, they are looking for summer league champions gear. They are desperate. I have a good friend in Charlotte who has, his company has season tickets in the 5th row, and he loves going to the games, but he's really trying to make his son a Hornets fan, and it's a hard sell. So he is hoping that they improve, but 24.5, they have, they have added to their roster a little bit, but they are excited about their draft. Obviously, Con Knippel had a big summer league. My son
Liam
went
McNeely, another brief Pierce product. Spent his freshman
year. They are
year.
very excited about having gotten Liam McNeely with the 29th pick, which they got from the Mark Williams trade.
Mm-hmm.
My son went to a Creighton basketball camp.
Yes.
And he was very excited that Ryan Kalkbrenner came back.
Okay.
And attended the camp as a newly crowned Summer League champion. But anyway, MacMahon, 24.5 for the Charlotte Hornets.
Tough one. I did realize after our last pod, we did not mention the Charlotte Hornets as a potential option or as an option for Chris Paul, which they were. But Chris Paul wanted to be a father at home, not a babysitter in his hometown. And the Charlotte Hornets are a team that's desperately in need of babysitting. That's why, despite having an incredible talent in LiAngelo Ball as the face of the franchise, you're sitting there looking at an over-under of 24.5. What I'm saying?
Said LiAngelo Ball.
It's early. LaMelo. God, it's early on the West Coast. Well, LiAngelo Ball, hey, his music plays at the games. God, I was like, it's not on those other. Anyways, LaMelo, and I've had my moments discussing LaMelo, and I don't think he's proven me wrong to this point. I just feel like the Hornets are a franchise in search of an identity, and I don't think LaMelo is going to be part of that long-term identity. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying 24.5 feels about right for me. I'll take the over because I think it's going to be hard not to win more than that in the East if they have any kind of relative health.
I'm going to take the under because they, like the Celtics, basically have no centers on their roster. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner might start because I think the only centers they have are he and Mason Plumlee at the moment. And I think this team in general, like, let's see if LaMelo can play more than 45 games. He again missed a bunch of games last year. they still feel like they're trying to get, obviously we're one of these teams that fell in the lottery, some that was hoping to jump up all the way. I do like Khan, but
Yeah.
we're hoping to get Cooper Flagg or someone like that in the draft. So yeah, I will reluctantly take the under because 24.5 I think is a very good number, but they do still feel like they're at the start of whatever they're trying to do, which, I think to your point, MacMahon, one of the more interesting things to look at going forward is sort of what is the LaMelo Ball situation in Charlotte going to be. And I think, as this year plays out, that will be something we'll begin to probably start to figure out, because if, let's say, they do win 30 something games and LaMelo plays 65, 70 games and is good and healthy, that'll look one way. If it's another 45 game season for him and they win 20 games, it might look a different way.
I think if LaMelo plays really well early in the season, it could be an interesting trade deadline.
LaMelo has averaged 35 games played over the last 3 years. Now, I recognize that there was some draft positioning, which happened again this last year. I mean, they lost 12 of their last 13 games.
Yep.
Sometimes you have teams that are like, try to build up, going into next year. Like we'll talk about Toronto, about their finish. It was not a strong finish. And Brandon Miller only played 27 games last year. He looked very good in those 27 games, but he played 27 games.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to still take it in the teeth a lot. I tend to think they might slightly go over 24.5. But their talent, if they're fully healthy, dictates they probably should win some home games at least. But again, it's hard to bank on LaMelo when he's just can't stay on the court. So
it's hard to bank on him when he's on the court too.
Well, he's tough to watch, man.
The 32-foot one-legged, threes, like.
Well, I know
and fouling out when you don't guard anybody.
I know Charles Lee was trying to bring a certain style of play this last season, and at times it felt like it was leaning into some of LaMelo's bad habits.
At times.
He didn't play that many games, but there was a few times when I watched them and I was just like, it's tough. It's a tough watch at times. Obviously when he gets hot, but
he's an extraordinary talent. He might end up having a heck of an NBA career. I don't think it'll be in Charlotte.
Well, you before last season, I was kind of bullish on LaMelo, and I think the three of us got in a little minor back and forth about it, where I was sort of saying I think he can do better. His performance last year did not help that position. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to take a step back from that, even though I think that their talent dictates that they're more than a 24-win team. But all right, Chicago Bulls, one of our
apology accepted. Apology accepted.
One of our favorite teams to discuss their competence. 32.5 Bontemps.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I think the Bulls are going to be looking to be pretty bad this year. And
they never do that, though.
Well, again, they could maybe get the 10 seed with 32 wins in the East. And
oh my God, that's a sad statement that I can't dispute.
I just think it's going to be hard for them to get a lot of wins with the team that they have. Like, there's not a lot of talent on this roster. Josh Giddey, we assume will get extended at some point and be in Chicago. We'll see if he and Kobe White, he will be on the team. We'll see if Kobe White makes it on the team through the whole year. He's going to be a free agent next summer. He will not be extended because he's making too little money to get extended at a number I think that he would take. So I just think that in general, the Bulls will try to be competitive. As you said, MacMahon, that tends to be what they do. I just don't think that with the team they've got, and probably playing Modest Buzel's a ton of minutes, probably playing Noah Essengay, their first round pick this year, a good amount of minutes. If Nick Vucevic misses any time at all, they don't really have any depth behind him. I could go either way on it, but I'm going to take the under because I just think they're probably going to end up being higher in the lottery than maybe they normally intend to by default this season.
They finished the season like they were winning games, and Giddey
after the Levine trade.
Yeah, and Giddey was putting up numbers. So I hear what you're like. The roster is not an impressive roster, but they were able to win games with this core last year. They went on that nice little stretch where, highlighted by Giddey hitting the half-court buzzer beater to beat the Lakers. I don't think they're going to be anything close to a contender, but they were a 39-win team last year, and I don't think they'll be dropping off. I don't think there's a major drop-off coming from that.
The Bulls, Tom Thibodeau was the Bulls coach for 5 years. Granted, I understand that the team had a lot of talent. Derrick Rose was MVP in there. Those 5 years, they averaged 51 wins. Okay. Tom Thibodeau has now not been the coach for 10 seasons. These are the Bulls' win totals for those 10 seasons. Now, some of these, actually, I'm just going to give the win-loss record because obviously there were some COVID-affected seasons. 42-40, 41-41, 27-55, 22-60, 22-43, 31-41, 46-36. That was Billy Donovan's second year. This is the last 3 years. 40-42, 39-43, 39-43. That is hell. That is
they're in purgatory.
That is not where you want to be. And their maneuvers in the interim have neither leaned into getting farther down or leaned into getting much better. And so they won't even let Billy Donovan out of purgatory. He could have gone to the Knicks and they won't even let him go because they won't even admit their situation. So I'm afraid to say for Bulls fans, I agree with MacMahon. It'll probably be over 32 because this team is addicted to this mediocrity and their actions.
I will root for being wrong on that one because that will make me happy if they end up at 38-44 and ridiculous.
But they refused to rebuild. Right. And that might be their best marketing slogan, refuse to rebuild. It's some source of pride. Seriously, it's some source of pride. They are stuck on the mediocrity treadmill. They are the definition of a purgatory team. And Jackson's better at looking things up than me. 17-13 since February 6th, since the Levine trade for the Bulls. I was able to look up the final quarter was 15-6. And look, it's, the final quarter of the season, that's when the Tankapalooza is in full bloom. And so the Bulls are racking up wins against some teams that are tanking. But the point is the Bulls will rack up wins against teams that are tanking late in the season because they're too principled, if you want to be polite about it, or too proud or too dumb to rebuild.
All I'm going to say is I read all of those numbers, all of those records. And this offseason, the Bulls extended their front office, and Arturas Kanishevich, their team president, asked the fans for patience. Okay. Next up, Cleveland Cavaliers, 55.5. That is the largest in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs coming off an offseason where they lost Ty Jerome in free agency, traded Isaac Okoro, a reserve, for Lonzo Ball to be basically Ty Jerome's replacement, and signed Larry Nance. So they did some maneuvering on their bench. Will bring back their whole starting unit, which is now going to be a lot more expensive because Donovan Mitchell's contract extension kicks in. Evan Mobley's Supermax contract kicks in, and they are a second apron team. They're pretty much locked into this roster for this season. And 55.5, they are the favorites right now, Bontemps, to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'm taking the over. I think I still have some concerns about them as a playoff team, as we saw last year in the playoffs. However, they are built to win a ton of regular season games, and the East stinks. So I think they're going to win a ton of regular season games, and I think they got a very good chance to be the 1 seed again.
I'd also take the over. I think that over-under is probably deflated because of the epic playoff disappointment that somebody here struggled to admit was actually a disappointment. It's credit to them that.
Are you talking about me? Because of course it was a disappointment.
No. When they were on the brink of elimination, we had some battles, Wendy. We don't need to revisit here. Let me just take my little cheap shot and we'll keep it moving.
They clearly lost to a better team.
okay, we don't need to relitigate or revisit.
All right.
Let me take my cheap shot and keep it moving. But I agree with Bontemps as reluctantly as I utter that line that they'll probably be the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference again, and they'll do it winning more than 55.5 games.
Yeah, look, they probably will not go as hard in the regular season this year, and they had one of these seasons where there was a number of games that could have gone either way that went their way. And so 64 wins is hard to see repeated, but they're not, unless they're going to have significant injuries, I don't see them winning 9 fewer games. So I'll go over on that. And again, as Bontemps said, and I predict we will be saying into next season frequently, their regular season output will not matter except what happens in their postseason. They have now graduated beyond where they can be congratulated for regular season success, but that's a good place to be.
Sure.
All right. Detroit Pistons, one of last year's ascendant teams, surprised us how good they were. No longer on the surprise. Generally kept their team in place. A big factor for them will be getting back Jaden Ivey. They did have some cap space that they had the option to maybe go out and big name shop, but Trajan Langdon, their team president, made it clear his priority was keeping that team in place. Anyway, MacMahon 45.5 ESPN bet for the Pistons.
I like them as a team that will continue to improve. They did lose some key bench pieces. They lost Malik Beasley to his own stupidity. They lost Tim Hardaway Jr., who they, essentially allowed to leave, signed a minimum with Denver, and then they lost Schroeder. Jaden Ivey, I think, more than makes up for the absence of Schroeder. They brought in Duncan Robinson to, replace Beasley as that volume 3-point shooter, and the gravity that creates, the space that creates for Cade Cunningham in particular. But I'm going to bet on continued improvement from Cade Cunningham, who proved he is a legit face of a franchise last year. Who's I think ascending superstar is fair. I think Jalen Duren is one of the most dynamic young bigs in the league, who is also going to continue to improve. Ivy was playing well before he went down. So I like this young core. I like the job J.B. Bickerstaff obviously did last year, and I think they'll bump it up a few more. Asar Thompson, I think, also is going to continue to improve. So I think they bump it up a few more wins.
Yeah, I think this over-under is right about in the right place. I'll be curious to see if they can push forward a bit, or if they sort of have a reset season to some degree after jumping up as much as they did last year. Still have some concerns overall about their offense around Cade and, just the overall setup of their team. But they have a young team that is going to be pushing to win games, and Cade is awfully good, and J.B. Bickerstaff has shown an ability to help young teams continue to improve. So I'm going to take the over also, simply for the fact that, again, when you look at this middle section of the East, there's not a lot of competition for them, and I think it's hard to see them finishing out of the top 6 because of that, and so I'll take the over.
Jaden Ivey is one of the more interesting players to watch in the Eastern Conference last year. He really was looking like he was going to ramp up and be kind of the player that they thought they were drafting him high in the lottery. And so what he is able to do, when he got injured last year, they didn't rule out that he could come back at the end of the season. In fact, they didn't even apply for a disabled player exception because they thought he was going to come back. But the point is, by the time the season starts, he should have been fully healthy for 6 months. So I expect him to really get going. And he's a guy that if he, continues elevating, can really be a difference-making player, because that backcourt play could be big. The other thing I'll say is they are a team that is upwardly mobile. If they've got a lot of flexibility and they have a draft capital, they are a team that could go hunting for a midseason upgrade. Now, they have to pay these young guys. They already paid Cade. They have to sign Ivy. They don't have to, but to extend Ivy. Yeah. So they may be careful about that. But this contract they gave to Duncan Robinson is one of the more interesting ones we've seen in a while, because it was reported, 3 years, like 47, 48 million, but it's extremely flexible. It's guaranteed this year. And then the next 2 years, 15 million each year is non-guaranteed. So if he's great, they can hold on to him. If they spend a bunch of money and need to clear the cap off, they can just let him go. So it was actually a pretty inventive contract. That was actually a pretty, the Heat had an interesting offseason, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I like the Pistons slightly over this as a bet on Jaden Ivey's continued growth. Okay, coming up next, the defending Eastern Conference champion, the Indiana Pacers. Halliburton will miss the season. They lose Miles Turner. In basically, they don't want to pay him. He walked for more money to the Bucks. Let me take this back because I can get a call. They made him an offer that would have taken him into the luxury tax, but they got beat by a higher offer that was market value. They may not have agreed with market value, but it was market value. And they're going to try to replace him by committee. And so basically they lose their point guard and their starting center, two pretty important positions.
Yes.
So 39.5 is the number, Bontemps, for the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, this one is hard too, because they're going to try to make the playoffs, I'm sure. So I'll probably reluctantly say the over. Again, looking at just how bad the East is. But I mean, they're going to, no Halliburton and no Miles Turner, and not any real replacement for either is going to be a difficult thing to manage. But they have enough depth, and I don't anticipate them trying to really tank. So I'll say they get to around 40, 41 and 41, and I'll take the over there.
I'd probably take slightly under. Again, the whole gap year thing here. I think the most interesting thing about the Pacers this year on the floor is going to be watching Ryan Nembhard as the full-time point guard. Obviously,
Ryan Nembhard. If he was a full-time point guard,
I am so bad on.
Listen, I've been making mistakes today too. I'm not looking down my nose at you. But yeah.
Ryan Nembhard, full-time point guard of the G League's Texas Legends this year on a 2-way contract with the Mavericks. I tell you what, I've only had one cup of coffee. Andrew Nembhard, who has certainly made himself a household name for NBA media, at least. But seriously, the guy has proven himself as a great role player, dude, what a playoff run that he had. Great defensive guard, outstanding complimentary player. He's going to have the ball in his hands this year a ton, and it's going to be fascinating to see how he handles that. And long term, there might be some major benefit in him having this experience.
I'm going over here just because I know how the Pacers organization operates. They're well coached. They've got good development. They've got good depth. They're just limited in what they're going to spend. That's just the truth. And that's what happened they lost Miles Turner because of that. I mean, that's just no other way to put it. But they have, there's some younger players who could get bigger roles this year who might thrive a little bit. You might see some Johnny Furphy who, they have routinely drafted guys who have gotten better. Not everybody. They don't bat 1,000 like anybody else, but a big thing for them will be what they do with Benedict Mather and whether they extend him, and if they don't extend him, whether they trade him. But obviously they have TJ McConnell who will help them. And, TJ McConnell is going to lead them to victories. Like, he's going to be a difference-making player. There might be 2 or 3 games this year where TJ McConnell makes the difference and that pushes them over. So I don't know what's going to happen with them, but they are a team that typically overachieves, not underachieves. And so I'll bet on their overachieving. Okay. Miami Heat, MacMahon, I believe it's your turn. 37.5. The wager on the Heat to being a losing team this year. They make the move to get Norm Powell is their big offseason move. Losing team.
I don't like
branded this year.
I don't like betting on the Heat to be a losing team. I know they were last year. I don't know, man. I think Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Norm Powell in the Eastern Conference, they won't have the Jimmy saga unfolding and sucking the soul out of the team for the first half of the season. Obviously, I don't have to talk about Spo's credentials as a head coach. I'm going to take the over here.
My best bet on the entire board. I'm taking over on the 37.5. The Heat last year had the 5th most clutch games in the league, 42 of them. They went 14-28. They're not going to do that again. And while doing that, they won 37 games. So in non-clutch games, they were 23-17. They're going to be better than 37 wins. And like you said, MacMahon, Bam Adebayo had a bad year last year. He will be better. They had the Jimmy thing hanging over him for half the year. I suspect they're going to be decently better this year, especially because, again, like the Pacers, they're going to be trying to win games in the East, and there are going to be a lot of games to win. So I think that number's low.
I agree. I think they're going to try to win. They may improve during the year. I'm going over. Milwaukee Bucks, 42.5. This seems to be a wager that Giannis is not going to be there the whole year because they have won over 42 games for like the last 8 years, even if there's been some injury issues. Bontemps, I don't know what's going to happen with Giannis, but I would probably not make this bet right now until I see opening night. But 42.5 if Giannis is there seems low.
Yeah, I mean, probably it's low. I mean, again, they had Damian Lillard last year, who's awfully good, and they didn't really replace him. They replaced Brook Lopez with Miles Turner, but they still have the all-star point guard hole on their team. And yeah, they went out and I've liked some of the stuff they've done on the margins. Like Ryan Rollins is an interesting young player. Getting Cole Anthony for the minimum on a buyout is fine. There is not a lot of talent on the roster, and they're one Giannis injury of any sort away, even whether he's on, say he's on the team. If he misses 3 weeks, they quickly become one of the worst teams in the league. So I'm going to take the under, both as a hedge on if something happens, though I don't really expect it to, trade-wise, and also just the idea of him getting hurt, because he's going to have a insane usage load this year, and he's going to put up crazy numbers. But what I'm also not convinced that's going to have him in a situation where he's going to be playing 75 games, and if he misses, like I said, he misses any chunk of time, these guys are going to have a really, really, really hard time winning games.
Yeah, no, they're going to put the ball in Thanasis Antetokounmpo's hands. Just kidding. I was continuing my trend of screwing up players' names. Could have gone Costas there. Former 60th overall pick. The Mavericks' third player in the Luka Jalen Brunson draft. I can't go under 42.5 with Giannis, though. I think there's going to be an interesting MVP discussion around him if he plays 70 games.
I have the information I have today is that Giannis is on the team. Obviously, if that changes, you change it, but 42.5, I'm going over. New York Knicks, real close to the Cavs in terms of favorites to win the East. MacMahon 53.5. They added some depth to their team. 53.5, New York Knicks.
I'm going to go over just because I think that the Knicks are going to benefit from playing in the Eastern Conference where there's, going to be a lot of wins to be had. Yeah, so that's about what I'll say there. I don't know. Mike Brown's obviously his credentials speak for themselves. I don't know if firing Tibbs is going to lead to more regular season wins or not, but I think this team wins more regular season games than they did last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm also taking the over. Same reasons as the Cavs. The Knicks are good. The Knicks are pretty deep. The Knicks got deeper this offseason, and the East stinks. So they're going to win a couple more games, and they'll probably be the second seed.
Yeah, there's three teams that ESPN bet has in the 50s for over under in the East, and I just think that there's going to be a lot of wins available for those teams. So the Knicks, I'm going to go over. The other team that, other than the Cavs, that is over, has in the 50s for their over under is the Orlando Magic, 51.5 Bontemps. Obviously, the big offseason move, trading 4 firsts for Desmond Bane.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I like the Magic talent wise, but the Magic have a lot of injury questions. Can Doug stay on the court? Desmond Bane has had a decent amount of health issues over the past couple of years. Let's see how he can stay on the court. Mo Wagner was a really important piece of them off the bench. He's obviously got a torn ACL. We'll see when he can play. Jonathan Isaac is a guy who's in and out of the lineup in general. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner both missed time last year. This team still has some shooting issues.
And Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, well, right. Suggs I mentioned earlier. But they could go over this number, but there's enough things that could go wrong for them to be under that I'm going to take the under. But if they're healthy in April, going into the playoffs, and they show some improvement offensively from their core guys, they're going to be a very difficult out in the postseason.
I'd probably take the under. 51.5 is a lot. I think it's close. I think they're probably a 50-win team. I don't know about a 52-win team. I love the Bane fit for them. I certainly, you can say they overpaid, given the pick package that went back in return, especially with the Suns pick being in there. But this team was starved for a big time shooter. Bane's a big time shooter who can also create a little bit. But again, I think I'll go 50 and not 52.
Bane has averaged 56 games over the last 3 years, true. But even if they get 56 games out of Bane, I think it's going to be a boost to them. And I do think that they're going to win some games. I don't think they're headed like to threaten 60, but again, if I'm on the fence about a team in the Eastern Conference, I'm going to lean a little bit over if it's a good team, because I just think there's going to be some wins out there. So I'll lean over on the Magic. I don't even know how you say the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, this is an off the board one for me. Bontemps, the number is 30 is, the number is 40. Bontemps, the number is 43.5. I don't freaking know.
You got to pick one way or the other eventually.
I will.
I'm picking the under. Paul George seems like he's going to be out for quite a while. We have no idea what Joel Embiid's health is going to be. Why would you pick the over?
Yeah, I agree with that.
They could go way over, but
here's the thing.
Why would you bet that?
Over under 43.5 games played by Joel Embiid. Over under 43.5 games played by Paul George. Let's be honest, we're probably picking the under on both of those. And that if we're picking the under on those, we're picking the under on 43.5 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't bet on the 76ers. It's insane. You'd have to sleep on the under. All right. Toronto Raptors had a bit of a spurt towards the end of the season, ended up screwing them in the lottery. They ended up going all the way back to 9th. They do get Brandon Ingram back. Well, I guess he never played, so I guess he's not coming back. He has yet to play a game, and so they do get Brandon Ingram, who they paid a big premium to on a contract extension last year. Their over under is 36.5. MacMahon.
Yeah. This team has playing written all over it.
Yes.
God.
They might want to play in. They'd be thrilled with the play in. That's the problem. The problem is that, if they get near it, they may go for it.
Yeah. And
they gave a ton of money to Jakob Poeltl in one of the more under-discussed contracts of the summer, at least for one that was 9 figures. Jakob Poeltl got $26 million a year.
Yeah. God. I don't really like the long-term at all for Toronto. It's a good thing people up there like hockey so much. I'm going to take the under and think they're going to be like a 33-win, 10 seed.
I think this one's easy. I'm taking the over. Last year they won 30 games while pretty much actively trying to lose every game for the final couple months of the season, and they're going to be trying to push forward. And in the East, there's a lot of wins to be had, and they're going to end up somewhere around 500. So I'll take the over.
Yeah, if Brandon Ingram.
None of that is an endorsement, really, of the way things have gone the last couple of years. I tend to agree with your position, MacMahon. We've talked about Toronto out. They're poised to be the 8th seed.
Well, somebody's got to win games. When two Eastern Conference teams plays, one has to win.
And they've got a bunch of decent players, and they're poised to be somewhere in that 500 mix.
Yeah, their talent is indicative of a team that would be in this range. I'll go and nose over just because I think they'll try to improve at the trade deadline and keep their foot down. Like, I think that's what they're going to lean into. That's, it could end up on the last day of the season to get into the play-in. Washington Wizards, 20.5. Bontemps.
Yeah, this one is like the Brooklyn Nets one, a difficult one to go either way on, because we're probably going to have a couple teams under 20 wins, but which teams are they? The Wizards last year won 18 games. They do have a lot of young players who have gotten a lot of minutes, who are probably going to be better this year, so they may improve a little bit. I will probably take the under, though, and lean into the fact that they're probably going to be bad for one more year, and just playing, again, all of these young guys an absolute ton of minutes. I doubt CJ McCollum is playing a ton of minutes for them. I doubt Chris Middleton is playing a ton of minutes for them. Trey Johnson is an interesting young guard, but again, as we talked about earlier, he's not a point guard, but you play young guards, you're probably going to lose games. And they're playing a lot of young guards. So I will reluctantly take the under, even though I think that one could end up being wrong.
They at least have some interesting pieces in place. I really actually like the Cam Whitmore trade for them.
Me too.
Just as a high upside flyer, I don't blame the Rockets for just basically saying, hey, we've got to move on from him. He's not going to play regular minutes for us. And, I don't think he was going to be adding to the culture if he wasn't playing regular minutes, but the guy he's a 6'7" NBA athlete who can put the ball in the hole. But yeah, I would say it would certainly benefit them to be under on this, and try to add somebody else to a core of Alex Sarr and Trey Johnson. I like the AJ Johnson trade for them. I like them taking these high upside flyer swings while they are, figuring out who their core is going to be, that they're actually going to be able to win games with, hopefully sooner than later, but certainly not this season.
20 is such a low over under. It's hard to go under, but I think if they're on pace to go over, actions will be taken to make sure they go under, which is what I'm going to lean to. Okay. That's the Eastern Conference. We appreciate you watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Bontemps. And we will talk to you soon.
Adios, amigos.